Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Here today to talk to you about City Update 9 and how it relates to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. There's a lot of content out there that is looking at City Update 9, but we're going to go into the background, how it was done, how it's different from other city updates and world updates in Microsoft Flight Simulator, and what this means for what we can expect for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. Now, City Update 9, just to give you a real quick overview, is the northeast of the United States, Buffalo, Allentown, Pennsylvania, the east end of Long Island, and the Washington, D.C. area. The Washington, D.C. coverage also includes areas around D.C. in Virginia and Maryland, including the city of Frederick, including Gainesville, Bristow, Stafford, and Fairfax in Maryland. So it's pretty extensive. There's some unique things to talk about in terms of Washington, D.C. itself. As relates directly to Flight Sim 2024, let's talk about how this city update was done and what we are going to see going forward in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. So City Update 9 was created using something called TIN, which is short for Triangulated Irregular Network. Triangular Irregular Network is something that was developed in the 1970s. And what it was is a simple way to build surfaces from a set of irregularly spaced points. In other words, if you look on the top image, you can see it's basically a top-down picture where the shrubbery, the bushes, and the rocks and so on are kind of painted onto the outline, the physical outline of the image. At the bottom here is TIN. This is Triangulated Irregular Network. Now, what TIN is, so they basically take a series of points and they build that physical outline of the underlying world. And then what they do in terms of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 and the City Update 9 is they then use machine learning to place bushes, rocks, trees, shrubbery, etc. on top of that image. So you can see that on the bottom, the shrubbery, the bushes, the rocks, etc. are built on top of or are laying on top of the underlying image as opposed to what's on top. So what's on top is what Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 looks like. What's on the bottom is what we're going to see in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. And we are now seeing that in City Update 9. So what City Update 9 is a preview of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. And they've talked about this. They've talked about the fact that they are going to be backporting the technology that they use for Flight Sim 2024 into Flight Sim 2020 to the extent that they can. This is what they call 3D out of 2D. So they can't get photogrammetry everywhere. In order to get photogrammetry, you have to have an airplane actually fly over the area that you're trying to get the photogrammetry of and take images. So not a lot of, or shall we say, not every government is amenable to such an arrangement. That is also the case with Washington, D.C. So let's take a look at what we're talking about in terms of Washington, D.C. This is the FAA sectional chart for Washington. And if you look here, you're going to see a whole bunch of notes on the chart. ATC communication required prior to entry, all altitudes, SFRA East, ATC communications required. And you can see if you come down here, flight restricted zone. And this is DC. This is Reagan National Airport. This is the area where the Capitol, the White House, etc. And you come down here and you will see Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Area Special Flight Rules Area. Special restrictions apply to all aircraft operations from the surface to, but not including flight level 180 in the Washington, D.C. metro area. So what this means is if you fly inside of this area without permission from air traffic control, which you're not going to get, you are going to get a jet escort to the nearest location where you can land, where you will thereupon be arrested. So that's the complication with doing photogrammetry for Washington, D.C. However, as you can see, this has been done. Asobo has actually achieved this. And the funny thing is, I actually know the pilot who did these flyovers. Now, this was a very complicated operation. It took several years for the company that he worked for to get the approvals to do this. They were like 6 to 8 hour flight days. Aerial imaging, what you do is you literally just fly back and forth. If you ever see a farm field, the way the rows are laid out, it's the same thing. You fly up one direction, turn around, fly back the other direction, 180 the other direction, 180 the other direction, and you just create a grid pattern over what you're taking the images of. He had to get permission every single day that he flew over Washington. They didn't say, okay, you can do this, go ahead. Every single day he went flying over DC, he had to get ATC approval for that specific day, and he didn't know until when he called ATC in the morning and said, hey, we're going up today, can I get approval for this? He didn't know if they were going to say yes until they did. So this is a very, very complicated process. They started actually this process in 2019. So even before Microsoft Flight Simulator came out, they were already working on the approvals to do this imagery of Washington. So what you're looking at now is the imagery that was used to do this, and the imagery that's going to be used for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. This is imaging from a company called Vexcel Imaging, and it's Bing's partner, it's Asobo's partner in this project. And what Vexcel does, they fly around the world and they do this aerial imaging that I talked about using very, very high-tech cameras that get extremely high-quality images of the Earth's surface. Asobo takes this image and they feed it into Bing, and they use machine learning and AI to do things like remove clouds, etc., etc. Now, in the future, they're actually going to be doing something even more technologically advanced, which is called LiDAR, which is an acronym that stands for Light Detection and Ranging, or Laser Imaging Detection and Ranging. Now, this is a method for basically determining the distance ranges of objects on the surface of the Earth using laser. And they basically do it the same way that radar works, which is they send out a signal, and the signal bounces off whatever it hits, and they measure the time that it takes to return to the camera, to the laser imaging device that sent the laser out. It's basically 3D laser scanning of the Earth, and what you get is 3D extremely high resolution images. And so this is what is going to be used in the future. But right now, what they're using is these very, very high-tech cameras from Vexcel Imaging. So this is what's going to be used to make photogrammetry in the future. And you can see here in that previous image, you can actually see people playing table tennis on the ground. So we're going to be getting some really amazing images. So what we know now, kind of the melted buildings and that sort of stuff in the typical photogrammetry, what we're going to see in the future in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 is going to go way beyond that. As you see, they have now backported this into Flight Sim 2020. They're going to be doing that with the images they come up with going forward as well. So the photogrammetry and the imaging and the quote-unquote satellite imaging that we're used to is going to improve as time goes on in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 as well. Now, this is a quick look at Vexcel in action, how they do this. They fly their cameras over the surface of the Earth using airplanes. This is actually a manual process of flying over top of whatever it is that they're trying to get imagery from, using this camera, which is extremely high resolution. And what they get is this phenomenal imagery that they can work with. And you can see here what the resolution is, or what they're capable of in terms of what they can do with the camera. And this is what they do. They just fly over the surface of the Earth, like I said, at different altitudes to get different angles of everything, and then process the imagery using AI and machine learning. And this is pretty much the exact, I think he flew an Aztec. I don't know that the guy I knew flew that aircraft, the Seneca. I think he flew an Aztec. But in any event, this is how they do it. They literally fly over, and this is the type of imagery you get. That's an infrared image right there. So they can process and work with these images and do all kinds of things with them. This is what we are going to be getting. Is this what Microsoft calls a digital twin of planet Earth? And this is the result. So the images that I was showing you earlier were from the Flight Sim website, from Microsoft's release information. These are the images actually from Vexcel. So these are much, much more high resolution images than we saw earlier. So this right here is what we're seeing in City Update 9 in Washington, D.C. And this is what we can expect to see in Flight Simulator 2024, thanks to this camera here. Gone are those melted buildings. Gone are the 2D trees. It's going to be absolutely amazing. And we're getting a taste of this in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 with the City Update 9. You can see the trees around the White House. Those trees and the trees here, these are clearly 3D trees. These are no longer 2D trees that we're used to in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. This is what we're going to be seeing in November when Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 comes out. And we get to get a preview of it today, which is really pretty exciting. So hope you guys enjoyed this, and take care.